Hi, why does St. George's Day matter? It matters because, like so many things that combine history and mythology, they have an enduring resonance for us today. George was a Roman soldier who refused to slaughter fellow Christians, and so he was beheaded. He was a great soldier and a warrior, and brave and fearless, and is revered as a saint in many places, patron saint of England, Aragon, Catalonia, Germany, Portugal, Greece, Moscow, Venice. But these are some of the reasons why he matters particularly today. He epitomized courage and refused to back down from his beliefs, even though it meant death. Right and wrong meant more than his own safety. What's of interest is that Islam also adopted St. George as a saint. This is what Islam does. Whenever it sees anything that's good or popular in another culture, it steals it and tries to piggyback on the kudos that it gives. That's why it tries to rope in Jesus, Moses, and also St. George. And that's how Islam began. Muhammad tried to invent a new religion and only had a few dozen followers after 13 years. And those included his wife and family members. So he stole parts of Judaism and Christianity and then said to the Jews and Christians, "Look, my religion is like yours. Come and join me." And they said, "No, we've got our own faith. And anyway, you're simply stealing from us. Go away." And so began a hatred of Jews and Christians, which for radicalized elements lasts until today. But it's ironic that Islam has also stolen St. George and tried to stitch it into Islamic culture, because one of the main story threads of St. George is how the Spanish revere him precisely because of his inspiration to resist Islam. In Spain, St. George, or San Jorge, is the patron saint of the autonomous communities of Catalonia and Aragon. The story is that St. George inspired the then king, Pedro I, to rise up against Muslim settlers and take the land back in 1096. And the saint supposedly appeared to the Christians on the battlefield and gave them renewed strength and vigour. And the territory, Huesca, was subsequently recaptured after a long and bloody battle. So, in a territory where Islam had gained power and control, St. George was an inspirational force to take back that land from the Islamists and return it to indigenous peoples. That certainly rings a bell, doesn't it? England, Europe. Think about it. How on the nail is that for England and much of Europe now? 500 years later, during the First World War, a ghostly apparition of St. George is said to have aided British troops during their retreat from Mons, and the naval commander of the Zeebrugge raid cited the saint as inspiration. The name George is taken from the Greek meaning farmer or earth worker. So he comes from ordinary people. He is one of us. He is not a member of the elite. And he's a protector of common people. His symbolic appeal has been such in the West that he's one of the saints whose name is invoked to help during a time of infectious diseases. Think COVID and lockdown, when we had to battle not only an infectious disease, but an unnecessary lockdown and a plague of fear and untested vaccines. I doubt if St. George would have stayed at home, hiding behind the curtains, and subjected his body to numerous vaccinations, when the whole idea of a vaccine is that you only need one shot and you still don't get the disease after you've had the shot. William Shakespeare's Henry V, the king calls out his name in the battle cry. He says, "God for Harry, England, and St. George." In the medieval romances, the lance with which George slew the dragon was called Ascalon, which is after a city which is today in Israel. But the most famous part of this St. George legend, of course, is fighting the dragon. In the West, the dragon symbolizes a violent enemy. It's a monster at large. Do we not have monsters in our land? Islamic extremists, a political class determined to destroy the very things it should be protecting. So this is like a hydra dragon, one with several heads. But the story of George defeating the dragon is very interesting, and this is how it goes. In a village, a dragon appeared. This is a very common version of the story. A dragon appeared and started taking young girls as sacrifices until the villagers were at their wits' end. George the knight was passing through the land, and he sought out and killed the dragon, thus saving the daughters of the village from a terrible fate. If you substitute grooming gangs for the dragon, this story takes on a real resonance. So St. George matters because he symbolises the warrior spirit that every nation needs when it's under threat from within and without. He symbolises that quality of martial courage that is ready to lay down its life for the common good and the preservation of the people and a return to good order. Now, it's ironic that the latest absurd court case against Tommy Robinson reaches its conclusion on St. George's Day. Now, he knows, even if others in the court didn't have a clue, the significance of that. Tommy Robinson understands the mythical and contemporary significance of St. George. He's been fighting for freedom of speech, for a stop to grooming gangs, and the dragon of Islamic extremism, against halal butchery, the erosion of English culture, and a toxic political establishment that oppresses its own people and rewards criminals and groups intent on changing the country into a Sharia nightmare. So we would do well to remember that these myths and stories and histories can speak to us today and not persecute those who are trying to bring about positive change. And if we listen to these stories, perhaps we can find the courage to act. If you like this video, do please share and subscribe. And I put a few links in below to other things that may interest you. Thank you.